Now here's another little story of the Rebel of the Gap, which is my father. He told me so many stories. And he always told me if he had no bad luck, he'd have no luck at all. Now this you're looking at is Cumberland Gap. It's where 3 states come together: Virginia, Kentucky, and Tennessee. And here in the foreground is a little community just outside of Cumberland Gap called Tipple. This is where the little Rebel of the Gap grew up at, back in the 30s. And here's a picture looking back towards the Cumberland Gap from Tipple. Just a little poor community back in them days. Now he lived in a little house like this in Tipple with 10 brothers and sisters. And they lived hard in them days. And he done all he could to help the family, working gardens, hunting for furs, whatever he had to do to bring something home for a living. And he grew up at the base of this old Cumberland Mountain. This is downtown Cumberland Gap. There he is when he was first starting in school. Old pictures. There's the one you see all the time in the chapter. And he's coming of age. He's just becoming into teenager years. This is another story that he shared with me. Now when he always had a knack for tinkering, cobbling, fixing things, making things. Here he is with his brothers on an old wagon with Model T wheels. I'm surprised he didn't take that down Cumberland Mountain. But he fixed up an old bicycle. Fixed it up good and drove it around in the Gap, running errands, whatever he had to do around the farm. He was always kind of a daredevil growing up, doing things he shouldn't be doing. He took his bicycle over to Cumberland Mountain towards Minnesboro, and it was all fun and games until the sprocket chain come off, no brakes. But that's another video. Now the little Rebel of the Gap, he was the youngest of 5 brothers and 5 sisters. And all of his brothers had went off to war. And there's nothing to drive, but he had his dad, but he stayed in the logging woods 90% of the time. Hardly ever came home. Well, it was time for him. He started out working these little gas stations and little odd jobs. And times were getting better. The Depression was over, war was over, and things were looking up. And he's working at a little gas station here on the corner of 19th Street and Cumberland Avenue in Minnesboro, Kentucky, back in the early 50s, late 40s, early 50s. And he got to hanging around guys that they worked on cars all the time, and they would go to these junkyards, local junkyards, and get parts and build up some good racing machines. And he got into that. Oh, they loved it. He said they just loved racing them cars, especially in this back country on these old dirt roads where they could just lay it to it. And yes, they raced around, they said, a little bit on the country roads, main road, but it was kind of dangerous with other traffic. And besides, they couldn't get much done doing that. The law was always watching. But they all knowed each other. The law didn't want them racing on these public roads. So they had to watch out for them. And they would race on the local racetracks when there was races available. And he said they loved that, doing that too. But going in a circle all the time didn't interest him. Him and his buddies, they liked mountain racing. Racing up these mountains as fast as they could. They would time each other, and that's how they would win the pot, he said. Whoever went up the mountain or down the mountain in a certain amount of time won the pot. And they would gather here at an old place on Cumberland Mountain. It's no longer here, called the Indian Rock Cafe. Been gone long before my time. It was a little bar and grill, and they met and got up and raced each other here. They'd even race across Cumberland Mountain late at night. This is a dangerous mountain, and they'd get caught on it, and they'd have to pay a big fine. But he said they had plenty of wrecks on these old country back mountain roads. He said you get over a regular wreck, but when the car flipped over head over end, it took you a few days to get over that one. But these old cars were made tough back then. They'd just go back to the junkyards, piece them motor, whatever they needed, parts, make them another racing machine, and add it again. And as time went on, he said a lot of the drivers and his friends, even him, was approached by the moonshiners in the local area. These mountains were full of moonshiners, but they wanted some way to get their product out there to the big cities to make some money. So they tried to recruit these good drivers. And you can see right here, Cumberland Gap, it's right in the heart. They used to call the Old Thunder Road, between Knoxville, Lexington, Harlan, Old Mountain Roads. And he put, his friends would take in on it sometimes, and some of them would get through, and some of them would get caught. And they did up paying a big fine or being put in prison. And the local governments, especially the state, they took pride in catching these moonshiners. That's big publicity. Well, that's the way it was in these mountains. And they'd hunt down these steals too and destroy them. And if they could catch the owner, they'd send them to prison. So that was the way of life it was if you wanted that way in these mountains. And he said sadly he's had some friends that was doing this, trying to get away from the law, speeding, and they crashed. And unfortunately, a few of them he said died hauling this moonshine. It was a serious business. But him, he wanted nothing to do with this moonshine. He had his opportunities, but he said he didn't care nothing about it because of his dad. His dad was a logger, and he stayed in the woods all the time logging. And when he got paid, he said he never would come home and help his wife or his mother and his family. He'd spend it all drinking. And he swore to himself that he would have nothing to do with that. He's seen it firsthand. So he just stayed in the local businesses, what jobs he could find here in Middlesboro, Kentucky, working in a gas station, and enjoyed it because he got to move with cars all the time, and his friends that raced them. And his boss was a good guy, and he liked him. He owned this station, and he done a lot of auto parts. So he done a lot of deliveries too around the local area, down into Tennessee, up into Kentucky, delivering auto parts and pieces for vehicles and stuff around the area. Now, one time, he said that the owner's wife bought a piano, high-priced piano from some rich person in the town. So he wanted him to pick it up and deliver it to his house. Well, he said he took a couple guys with him. That thing, he said, was heavy. It's all they could do to get it out of that house and up into that truck. Well, he said they finally got it up in the truck and had to move it around and even turned it around again to get it to fit right, and tied a good rope around it, he he said, and headed towards the valley. That's where his boss lived. Went across Cumberland Mountain, heading towards La Follette, down into Speedville. A few miles. And he goes up here by the old Cudjoe's Cave. Here's some old pictures of back in during that time of the late 40s, early 50s. It's no longer here, along with this road over this mountain. But this is what it used to look like back in that day. It's a thing of the past, of history. And it used to drive down through the Gap, 25E. You come across Cumberland Mountain down into Cumberland Gap, and you go on towards Knoxville or La Follette, the old country roads. This is Powell Valley. He said he took his time down through there with that old piano in the back. It was heavy too. And he heading down old Highway 33 and goes on down to 63 to La Follette. And he was taking his time. People was going around him, honking his horn and everything, he said. He said he didn't want to mess that up. Well, he's on up the road here in these old country back roads before the modern road. And he come up over a little blind spot hill, and there was a cow right in the middle of the road. Well, he was right up on it, so he swerved around to get around that cow. And when he did, he felt that piano come out of that truck and turn head over end down that road, busted all to pieces. He backed back up to it and looked at it. He said, well, I guess I've lost another job. But what could he do? So he just took the truck on home with what's left of that piano with him. Next day he took it back down to the station. Told the boss what's going on. He said, well, don't worry about it. She didn't need it anyway, and I didn't want it to start with. Well, the next day, he was out there at the pumps station working. Some lady rolled the window down and said, young man, I need to talk to you. Are you the one that drove that piano down the valley and crashed it? He said, yes, and I'm sorry for it too. Well, that went on for a day or two. And then one day she come in there fighting mad. Why did you bust my piano? What are you going to do? Are you going to replace it? And even brought her mother in there. And for days they come in. Well, he finally made peace with his boss. The boss wasn't going to fire him. He said, don't worry about it. So he finally just bought her a new piano and had it delivered. He didn't like listening to her learning how to play. Well, there you go. He told me my dad so many little stories. And he had some hard ones and some funny ones, and growed up hard during the Depression. But he had a good life. He raised a good family. Well, anyway, I hope you enjoy these little stories of the Gap. You can see every one of them up here in the corner if you'll just click or go to the playlist, Little Rebel of the Gap. You won't regret it. So I hope you enjoy these little stories. Take care out there. God bless. And I'll see you next time.